Welcome, everybody, to Va-Dor's Touch of Torah tonight with Rabbi Barry Silver, and we are talking about the Torah Parsha VAYISHLACH. And take it away, Rabbi Barry.
Thanks a lot, Sharon. Thanks everybody for joining us. Yes, we're towards the end of the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis. The passage is called VaYishlach. It means he sent away, and it talks about a reconciliation between Jacob and Esau. Very timely in that today we have extreme animosity between Israel and Hamas, and everybody is hoping for some type of reconciliation. We've seen such an overture on a temporary basis, and we're hoping that it might extend further into the future and perhaps become a permanent resolution. Many people think it's impossible, but if you believe in Jewish scripture, then you'll see that adversaries have frequently become allies in the Bible. And that gives us Jews reason to hope that no matter how difficult things get and how estranged we become, even brother against brother, and you could say Islam and Judaism are like brothers, that there's always a chance for reconciliation. What it says in the Bible is that when this reconciliation occurred, Jacob says to Esau that seeing your face is like seeing the face of God. And what he meant was that when you are able to establish peaceful relations with former adversaries, that's a godly act. And peace is the highest ideal among them of the Jewish people. And so no matter what happens, we constantly seek peace. The other highlight of this Torah passage is that we see where the name Israel comes from. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Today, many Jews change their names so that they are not recognized as being Jewish. In this case, it's the opposite. Jacob changed his name so that he would be recognized as not only being Jewish, but what it means to be Jewish. Yisrael means one who struggles with the Almighty, or you could say who struggles with this power, this creative power within us all, and tries to understand it and tries to live in harmony with it. Many people seek a rather egotistical path. They just look out for themselves and they don't think of other people. What the Jews are called upon to do is to resist that urge and to try to be at one with all people and with the entire cosmos. That's what Yisrael means. It means to struggle against the urge for selfishness, to overcome it, and to try to be a source of peace and unity among all people, all living things, and the cosmos. Jacob and Esau become reconciled, and they leave and depart as friends. They start out the chapter as adversaries, and they end up as friends and allies. So it's a very optimistic passage, and it gives us hope that people who don't get along have the capacity to reconcile. Now, we might not be able to establish peace between Jews and Hamas or Israel and Hamas, but we all have the capacity to do this within our own family circle, within our friends, and within those from whom we may have become estranged. So when we read this passage, that's the lesson. Let us seek to be reconciled with all people. And in a small way, we also can help Israel reconcile with its adversaries as well. That's all I wanted to say about the passage. I open up the floor for discussion. If anybody has any comments or observations or questions.
If you want to speak, just raise your Zoom hand so I can recognize you. Okay.
Or if not, I can keep going.
Yeah, keep going, Rabbi.
Okay. So I've put together a proposal for peace, and it should be Sharon. Is it on on our website somewhere?
Yes, and it got sent out, yeah, with yesterday with the announcement for this meeting. So
Great.
they could click on
Okay.
it.
Well, I'm hoping that people will look at it, and if you agree with it, ratify it. If you don't agree with it, let me know where you think it falls short, and I'd be glad to reconsider any of its terms. The terms that I came up with is that Israel should recognize a Palestinian state on the West Bank as soon as the people of the West Bank recognize Israel's right to exist. That could be done tomorrow. Doesn't take a whole lot. Just the Palestinian Authority, or whoever in charge there these days, just says we recognize Israel's right to exist, and Israel will recognize a Palestinian state on that day. As far as Jerusalem is concerned, Jerusalem will become a truly international city. The part of Jerusalem occupied today by the Jewish people will become the Jewish part of Jerusalem and the capital of the state of Israel, recognized by the newly formed Palestinian state and by the people of the world. It will also be proclaimed that Jews and Muslims and Christians are announcing Jerusalem is now a city of peace, and it is a role model and example for people around the world to reconcile their differences with people of all faiths, backgrounds, religions, and nationalities. Regarding the people of Gaza, Gaza, unfortunately, is ruled by a terrorist group called Hamas. Hamas must go. There is no Palestinian state recognizable in Gaza because Gaza is ruled by a group that wants to annihilate the Jewish people in Israel. So that won't happen. But what could happen is Israel will work together with the nations of the world and the Palestinians to remove Hamas from power. And then when that happens, Gaza can elect its own representatives. And if they also reconcile and agree to peaceful coexistence with Israel, then that also could become a Palestinian state. Israel would invite the nations of the world to join it in trying to remove Hamas, since the international community doesn't seem to be too thrilled with how Israel's doing it. Let them join in getting rid of terrorism. And then once that's accomplished, there could be a Palestinian state there too. That is my proposal for peace. I hope that people will read it. And if you agree with it, circulate it to your friends, your family, your email list, and see if perhaps we can get some traction for this so that we can try to put an end to the horrific violence and suffering that's going on in that part of the world. Some people think it's impossible to have peace, but the Torah reading this Shabbat tells us no. The Torah reading in the past, where former adversaries became friends, like Isaac and Avimelech, the king of the Philistines, who also achieved peace, the Bible tells us no, and history tells us no, because the greatest allies of the United States are Germany and Japan, who used to be our bitterest enemies. So history and the Bible both teach us that reconciliation with anyone is possible. Anybody else?
So what is your plan if with this peace plan, how would you go about getting the powers that be to read it and take action upon it?
That's a good question. Right now, it's just a proposal that's on our website. But if everybody here sent it to their friends and their email list and said, I support this, how about you? We could start getting traction. You might also take it to your organizations if you belong to a Democratic club, a Republican club, a Hadassah, an Or, B'nai B'rith. If you know of other congregations, if you know of other organizations, send it to them. Ask them if they will endorse it. And let's try to get a lot of traction behind it. And if we do, then maybe somebody will pick it up in higher circles and recommend it as a blueprint for peace. I think it works. I think it's fair. I think it's impartial. I think it's doable. I don't think it's unrealistic. I think it's very realistic. And I don't think it rewards terrorism. It says that terrorism has to go. And once that happens, then we can have peace. So that's a very good question. That is my proposal, and that's also my proposal for its implementation. We'll be talking more about the passage this Shabbat. So if you want to hear more about VAYISHLACH and some of its implications, join with us. We'll be meeting by Zoom at 7 o'clock.
Does anybody have any more that they'd like to share or ask about the peace plan or about the parsha, about another parsha, about Judaism, etc.? While we have Rabbi kind of cornered here, so to speak. No?
That's not all right.
Oh,
We can
okay,
leave it.
Karen.
Oh, I see a hand.
Go
Karen,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Karen.
Hi. So, what are your thoughts about how realistic in terms of a time span to implement something like that would be? Because they say, I don't know this personally, but they say that there's an entire generation, if not two, of people that have been brought up on fear and hate. Fear and hate, or one or the other, in Israel and or Gaza, West Bank, surrounding areas, or here even, who are, if kids are indoctrinated into a certain thought frame, whether fear or hate, how do you change that when that kid is 10 or 20? Or do you have to wait for the next generation, like stop smoking, took whatever 50 years?
It's a very good question. By the way, also my plan is that on the West Bank, all settlements and the control by the Orthodox of Israel's government hopefully will change, and somebody else will come to power who will implement this. So part of the peace initiative and incentive would be that the settlements end. As far as your question, it's a good one. How do you undo a generation of hate? Well, let's look back to history. It's hard to imagine more hate than was generated in Nazi Germany. The whole nation was based on hatred and genocide, and that ruled the day. How long was it after 1945, when the Nazis were defeated, that we became allies with Germany? I don't know the precise date, but I would say within a year. The nation of Germany came around, their military was defeated, and the people adopted a different way of looking at the world. How about the Japanese? Japanese worshiped their emperor. They committed suicide in his service. World War II ended, and very, very soon thereafter, the people changed and they became allies with the United States and a source of peace. Now they're a very peaceful society. So how long would it take? It could literally happen overnight. But they need someone on the other side to encourage it to happen. The right-wing Jewish Israeli government doesn't seem like the right group to make that happen. But I believe under the right circumstances, it could happen literally overnight. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it could happen, and we shouldn't discount that possibility. Lester. You're muted.
Go ahead, Lester.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can now.
Some of the news commentators are saying that the Palestinians, the people in Gaza, kind of, they have a short-term memory of what the Hamas did to the Israelis, but they look upon their own suffering and their tortures. They're homeless. They have no food. They have no water. They're and they said if there was a vote for Hamas today, they would get favorable vote from the people there because they're freeing their people. They're providing through their threats and their negotiation now. They're bringing in food. They're bringing in water. They're bringing in medical supply. They're bringing in gas, and they're looked upon as sort of a hero for the surviving people now because they have nobody else to turn to. So how do you resolve that? How do you create a friendship with somebody? Hamas has to be destroyed. I mean, Hamas cannot allow it to continue as Hamas, but suddenly they've developed a support of some sort because they're holding their threat. It seems to be working for them. They're getting a lot of people back. They've gotten food. They've gotten their basic needs, and they're looked upon by people as a hero, an act of heroism for them. What's your thought on that, Rabbi?
It's an excellent point. And I agree with you that Hamas enjoys fairly widespread support in Gaza. However, we can't base their level of support by what people say. Remember, Hamas is a terrorist group. You'll never hear any Palestinian talk against Hamas, ever. Because if they do, they'll be killed. My dad, I've told the story before, was treated by a Palestinian nurse. And when I asked her to appear in our synagogue and talk about what it was like to treat a rabbi, she said, I can't, because I have family in Palestine. And if she told them, if it became known that she was trying to help a rabbi improve and get better, that her family could be killed. So they're not free to speak out. So when you see these news interviews and it says, oh, we like Hamas, they're great, we support them, you can't base anything on those statements. And the news media has done a horrible job of making that clear because they don't even mention it. You can't criticize Hamas and live to talk about it. People have been executed for it. But you raise a very good point, Lester. They do enjoy support. The people have been brainwashed. And the same thing was brought up by Karen. It's not the solution is simple to articulate, but it's not simple to achieve. You are 100% correct. These people have been brainwashed, and they say, look, they've brought us food and fuel, and they don't stop to think, well, wait a minute, the whole problem, the whole reason why we had all this destruction and killing and death and carnage is because of Hamas, because they launched these barbaric acts and they invited retaliation and they're celebrating. Hamas is the only group that's happy no matter who gets killed. Palestinians, if they die, Hamas is happy. They're living in some other country, the leaders enjoying themselves and blaming Israel. If Jews die, they're happy. So you're right, it's a difficult situation, and they do enjoy support, but not nearly the level of support that we might think, because they are not a free society, and we don't really know what they think.
Well, their homes have been taken down to the ground. Their family members have been, killed also or injured, and their people are being set free by this terror group that suddenly become their heroes.
And all this destruction happened because Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th. If they hadn't attacked Israel, none of this would have happened.
They don't look at it like that, Rabbi. They look at it that Israel is.
When you say they, we don't know what they is. You're right. I'm agreeing with you, Lester. There are some people who do look at it that way. But there's a heck of a lot of people who look at it the other way, who say, I wish they hadn't done this. This was madness. This is insane. But they can't say it, because if they did, they'd be killed.
The world opinion, I agree with you. And of course, my feeling is that the world opinion overseeing both sides of it could come to a sensible opinion that, yes, Hamas has to go, and what happened was because of Hamas, but the people that live there, that lived through this and lost their family members, that lost their ability to be treated medically, to have any food, to have a home to live in, is all gone. And what's being now produced for them, they look upon the ones that they're holding the world to ransom right now and able to get that. I hope I'm wrong, but it's
you're not wrong. It's just that it's not quite as blanket a statement as you make it out to be. It's not like every Palestinian supports Hamas. A lot of them don't. But just like when you had Joe McCarthy take over the Republican Party, it seemed that everybody who was Republican supported him. And then one day, like a switch that flipped, they turned against him and he was drummed out of the party and he was persona non grata. The same could happen tomorrow with Hamas. So I don't say anything is inevitable. Okay, you're right. They do enjoy fairly widespread support, but we don't know how widespread it is, and it could change overnight if there was an overture towards peace and they had a chance for an independent, free Palestinian state. If the people of Gaza saw the people of the West Bank having a free, independent Palestinian state and enjoying freedoms and enjoying liberty and not being controlled by a terrorist group, and they were to look over there and see what's going on there, overnight, they could say, we want that too. And we don't want Hamas. So that's what I think the secret is, to use the carrot and the stick and to give them their Palestinian state, to reward people who aren't governed by terrorists, and to show that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and to show that Israel wants peace, and to show that peace is possible. And when you do that, then the people of Gaza will see, oh, there's an alternative. We want the alternative better than this. That's the way to do it.
Well, they've tried, the world has tried to lead them in that direction. In fact, I think even President Biden made a statement that, you know, he would like to see a Palestinian state and an Israeli state.
Yes, but the world has coddled Hamas for too long. They condemn Israel and coddle Hamas. Right now, that's starting to disappear. A lot of entities now are trying to make peace with Israel and are no longer interested in coddling terrorism. They agree that terrorism must go. It's a different world now.
Yes.
Israel has allies, and Hamas and Iran are becoming isolated. So we shouldn't be governed by what happened in the past. A new world is possible. And we as Jews need to shine a light, a bright light, on what is possible, and not get mired in saying, well, that's impossible, this could never happen, it's always going to be fighting. That's not the Jewish way. The Jewish way is to recognize that there is possibly a light at the end of the tunnel, and every day is followed, every evening is followed by the sunrise. That's how the Jewish day goes. First darkness, and then light. And the greatest light often emerges after the most obscure darkness. That's what we have to remember.
Okay.
Thanks, Lester. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you, Sharon, for making all this possible.
Ron's hand is up. Hold on. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay.
Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I quite agree with what you're saying, Barry, and it makes total sense to people who are rational and sensible, like us. Unfortunately, not all people are like us. And I've found that when you take people who have been deprived of certain things in their life, major things in their life, and somehow they come into a better way of living and start getting used to it, I found that in many cases, as soon as things turn bad for them or turn, 180 degrees, they fall right back. And I've experienced it as a young man, even as a teenager, a kid, where I grew up, and they'll revert back to just hating us and expressing themselves, and it's always all their bad luck or their poor situation that they may be living in is if it turns around for them, it's always our fault, and they express themselves that way, and they have no problem expressing themselves, unless there's people that are there that are going to put them in their place, like Nazis or yeah. So it's nice to think that you offer a better way for some people and they start living it. And my experience shows me, or has told me, that it doesn't last. If things start going bad, they just revert to where they were and who they were before.
Okay. Well, Israel was at war with Egypt in 73. And before that year ended, they made peace. Things have gone bad and we're still at peace. So my experience shows me that peace is possible. There's 5 other Arab nations that were at war with Israel, and now they're at peace. So my experience tells me that peace is possible. Doesn't mean it's inevitable. It just means it's possible. And it happens. And history has
And-
shown that it happens. And if we
Well-
have an attitude like everybody hates us, everybody will always hate us, they're always going to hate us, there's nothing we can do, everybody hates Jews. If we have that attitude, then that'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then you're right, they will hate us. But if we don't have that attitude and we have a more realistic attitude, nobody can predict the future. But in the past, we've seen reconciliation. We saw it in the Bible. We've seen it in history, and it is possible. Then we'll try to make something that's possible real. If we don't think it's possible, it won't happen. But it is possible. History shows us that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I've seen that also, and I think it's wonderful. And when you have a nation who's ready to stand behind their people after they've turned their lives around and turned it from bad to good, and if they, I mean, right now, the Palestinians, they're being taken advantage of. They always have been by the faction groups like Hamas and the other ones. But as soon as and if Egypt and Morocco and the other North African nations who did fight against Israel in 73, if they make things better for their people and things go bad, they need to get right in there like the United States does, we hope, at all times, not so much so lately.
Egypt is doing that. Egypt now is facilitating a reconciliation with Hamas, and so are the Qataris. So it is happening right now. These groups that hated and wanted to destroy Israel are now working with Israel to establish peace. So it is absolutely possible. It's not just possible, it's actually happening as we speak.
So in your mind, why do you think they're doing this?
Because they realize that fighting against Israel is not good for their people, it's not good for their reputation, it's not helpful for the region, and there's actors in the Middle East that are far more deadly and far more dangerous than Israel. Israel is a source of peace. Israel is joining them in trying to fight against terrorism, like Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah. These other groups, they don't like them. Saudi Arabia doesn't like Hamas and Iran. They hate them. So they realize it's in their best interest to work with Israel. And Israel has to continue to make them understand that peace is much better for their people than war. And they've done that through strength. If Israel was weak, it never would have happened. It would have been destroyed a long time ago. Israel must remain strong and must fight back and must defend herself. That's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
but Israel also must hold out the olive branch of peace for those who are willing to establish peace.
I agree, totally agree with what you're saying. And it's a good thing that they're doing this. But as soon as things turn sour, they begin to turn sour, these people are reverting back to old thoughts that are no longer popular, even with their present governments.
Well, as has been said, these ideas are entrenched. They've been indoctrinated. They're not going to disappear easily, but they can disappear. I just want to maybe conclude by saying that our congregation does a lot to build bridges with the Muslim community. We have friends with Imam Zahir over at Al Tawad. We're very good friends with Sheikh Shafayat over at Darul Ulum. And that's something that we can all do. Just by being part of Va-Dor, you are part of an effort to build bridges of understanding and knock down walls of hatred with the Muslim community, with the Christian community, with the Buddhists, with those of no religious identity, with those who take care of the planet. So just join with us. Just be a member. Just affiliate, support us, spread the peace word, and you will be helping to establish peace in this world.
Again, I agree with you, and this is exactly why I'm with you right now.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate your great leadership, Ron. We really do. You came forward at a critical time in the history of Va-Dor, and we appreciate the leadership you offer, and I appreciate everybody for being on the line with us tonight, for joining with us, for participating in the conversation. We don't have a whole lot of people on board right now, but a lot of people listen to this broadcast.
Yes,
and I implore everyone If you like the peace proposal, take a look at it, read it. If you like it, send it around. And let's get people to support it and show that peace is possible. It's not pie in the sky. It's not kumbaya. It's going to take hard work and a strong Israel, but peace is possible. That's what the Torah reading is telling us, and that's what history has shown. All right. Thank you, everybody.